Hello and welcome to the Digital Signage Guide. My name is Tim and today we're looking at the difference between a 4K screen and an HD screen and potentially even talking about what 8K means and what 8K will do for us in the future. So to quickly explain what the differences are between HD and 4K is the pixel density. To explain what a pixel is, it's one single dot with three different colors, red, green and blue, and in between those we'll see how many pixels we can fit onto the canvas or the size of the screen. For example, a 55-inch screen in HD will have 1920 pixels across and 1080 pixels deep, and the total of that is roughly around 2 million pixels. And when we're looking at a 4K screen, it's whatever size, but instead of 2 million, we're actually looking at around about 8 million pixels. So there's a huge difference in terms of the density of these dots within the screen. Now, why is that important to you? Well, the quality overall will be more improved with 4K. So with 4K you get more depth, more individual pixels closer together typically that allow you to then see things much clearer. It's the same as wearing glasses. If you're long-sighted or short-sighted, it puts things into a clearer frame for you. That does also depend on the screen size. So as our screens become bigger, we're going to need more pixels. Otherwise those pixels will basically stretch out and your vision becomes blurrier or the screen image becomes blurrier. So when you're looking at a really, really big, let's say 100-inch screen, 4K becomes really, really imperative at that point due to the distance that the pixels are apart from each other given the size of that screen. That on the other side works where if you're actually looking at a smaller screen, let's say 20-inch or 19-inch screen, you may not need 4K because actually 1080p is going to be perfect quality given the canvas size that you have. So what are the other factors that we need to consider when we're looking at 4K versus HD? Well, first of all, with a 4K screen, you're going to have a much clearer image for smaller text. So in the example we've got here, our new Pro Dive collection, that's going to be easier to read in 4K because there's more pixels and things become sharper and clearer. Really, really beneficial if you've got a lot of text heavy on your screen or small text, and especially things like rotating text tickers where there's movement and motion. It's going to make that a lot clearer and easier to read. On the other side of that, with HD, you're obviously going to most likely be looking at a more cost-effective screen. However, one provision to that is as things are changing, as 4K becomes far more of the standard, you might see that table turn slowly where 4K actually, because of its volume and its availability, becomes more cost effective than buying an HD screen. The time will eventually come when that happens. HD will then eventually get removed from the cycle, and then the difference will be between 8K and 4K as technology progresses. Now, 8K obviously is a resolution that we're starting to see more of. It's not something that's there all of the time. It's definitely a lot more kind of unique or bespoke. That actually becomes more beneficial when you might have a myriad of these 4K screens working together as a video wall. You might want an 8K player. So when you take this player or device, you're actually spreading what would be 16 million pixels across all of those 4 screens rather than taking the 8 million of 4K and putting them over 4 screens. So it's all about the amount of pixels that you have and the power of the content. And that leads us on to the last piece on this, which is around the content itself. You can have a 4K screen, you can have a 4K player, you can have all of these things ready in place, but unless you've actually got the content, the 4K content, it doesn't make a difference. You can take a 1080p image, send it up to 4K and that will be fine, but you're going to lose the pixel. For each one dot that would be blue, let's say, you're then going to have 4 dots to be blue to make it kind of more technical. But in essence, it will just expand the size to fit the canvas and you're not actually getting more quality from it. So bear in mind, if you're going down the 4K route, make sure most of your content is 4K. Otherwise, you're not getting the most out of your hardware. And if you are looking at building to 8K, maybe for future-proofing, maybe because you've got a particularly in-depth detailed asset, or because you have a really, really big screen, then bearing in mind your content's also going to need to match that. The one other thing that people tend to push for with 4K is things like menu boards. So when there's a lot of text, or when it's something that's more experiential and you want something that's really impactful in terms of content, then 4K may be the better way to go. Again, these things will change quite quickly as HD becomes less and less relevant. If history has taught us anything, with 720, with all of the previous iterations of 320, whatever that might be, we continue to grow, we continue to expand to get to the better quality screens, and the worse or the lesser of the pixel densities just start to drop off eventually naturally. But that's the difference between 4K and HD, the biggest difference for you when making that decision is going to be around price, realistically, because if you can find the 4K screens at the same price as the HD or very close to, or just a little bit more, it's probably worth doing that for future-proofing and making sure you've got that option when it comes to it. Other than that, thank you very much. We'll speak to you on the next one. Let us know if you've got any questions.